What if two people fasted for exactly the same amount of time, 16 hours, 18 hours, maybe even a full day, and still got completely different results? One loses fat, feels mentally clear and energized. The other stays tired, feels cold, and barely loses any weight. Not because they have different discipline, but because their bodies respond at different times. Most people always ask the same question when fasting: how long do I have to fast? But the human body does not think in hours. It thinks in signals, in light and darkness, in hormones, in biological time. And this is exactly where almost everyone gets it wrong. Because fasting is not a switch you simply flip after 16 or 20 hours. It is a biological process that only works properly when it aligns with the body's internal rhythm. If you fast at the wrong time, your metabolism works against you. If you fast at the right time, the body begins to release fat and recycle damaged cells. So this video is not about how long you fast. It is about when your body is ready to switch. Because the truth is surprising. The best time to fast determines whether you burn fat or simply suffer. Fasting today is often treated like a simple mathematical equation. 16 hours without food equals fat burning. 24 hours equals autophagy. But the human body does not work like a stopwatch. It works like an orchestra. And every beat is set by the internal biological rhythm. This rhythm determines when insulin rises or falls, when cortisol releases energy or creates stress, and when the body switches from storage mode to repair mode. So two people can fast for exactly the same number of hours. But if one eats late at night and the other stops early in the evening, their bodies send completely different signals. This is where the real question begins. Not, how long do you fast? But, at what point does your body begin to help you instead of slowing you down? The human metabolism is tightly linked to the cycle of light and darkness. For hundreds of thousands of years, daylight meant activity, food seeking, movement. Darkness, on the other hand, meant rest, repair, and energy conservation. In the morning, the body is especially sensitive to insulin. Sugar is processed efficiently. Energy is made available. But the later the day gets, the more this system changes. Insulin becomes less effective. Melatonin rises. The body no longer prepares for intake, but for recovery. Those who eat during this phase work against this biological logic. Those who do not eat during this phase use an evolutionary advantage. Fasting in the evening is therefore not just skipping food. It is a signal to the body. Repair begins now. Many people are surprised when they lose hardly any fat despite long fasting periods. The reason is almost always the hormonal context. If food is eaten late, insulin remains elevated longer. The body stays in storage mode, even if nothing is eaten for many hours afterward. At the same time, sleep often suffers. And poor sleep increases cortisol, a hormone that signals the body to hold on to energy. The result is paradoxical. You fast longer, but the body defends its reserves. Fasting does not work in isolation. It only works when timing, hormones, and recovery align. So a new, much more important question arises. When does the body truly begin to release fat? And at what point does the cell receive the signal to recycle damaged components? To understand this, we need to follow the body hour by hour, starting from the moment of the last meal. I will then lay out the fasting timeline, 0 to 24 hours, with clear biological phases, hormones, bodily sensations, and the exact point at which fat burning and autophagy begin to accelerate. Immediately after eating, the body is in what is called the absorptive state. Insulin rises to transport glucose from the blood into the liver, muscles, and fat cells. Energy is abundant, and the body uses it. During this phase, no fat burning occurs. Autophagy is almost completely suppressed. The focus is on building, storing, and distributing nutrients. For many, this phase feels calm, satisfied, stable. But biologically speaking, fasting has not even begun yet. As insulin declines, the body begins to draw on its short-term stores. The liver releases glucose from its glycogen to keep blood sugar stable. Hunger may appear, not because energy is lacking, but because the hormone ghrelin is released according to its fixed daily rhythm. Many interpret this signal as a warning, but it is merely a biological timekeeper. It comes and it goes. Fat burning remains low. Autophagy is still minimal. The body is only preparing. Now a critical phase begins. The liver's glycogen stores become increasingly depleted. Insulin drops significantly. The body has to make a decision: conserve energy or tap into a new source. This is where lipolysis slowly begins. Fat cells release free fatty acids into the bloodstream. Some of these are converted into ketone bodies in the liver. Many people now feel cold, slightly dizzy, or mentally restless. Not because something is going wrong, but because the body is switching modes. This is the moment many describe as the true beginning of fasting. Insulin is low. Fat burning increases significantly. The body exits glucose mode and switches to fat and ketone metabolism. At the same time, signals change at the cellular level. AMPK rises, a sign of energy scarcity. mTOR drops. Growth mode is dialed down. Autophagy now begins to increase measurably, not at its maximum yet, but clearly active. For many, this phase feels surprisingly clear. Hunger subsides. The mind becomes calmer. The body is now in a state it knows well from an evolutionary perspective. Fat is the primary energy source. Ketone bodies fuel the brain and muscles. Insulin remains low. At the cellular level, cleanup processes intensify. Damaged proteins are broken down. Defective cell components are recycled. Autophagy now runs much more intensively, especially in the liver and muscle tissue. But this state is sensitive. Sleep, stress, and electrolytes determine whether the body regenerates or enters an alarm state. Fasting is not a competition for the most hours. It is a biological dialogue. The better the timing aligns with the internal rhythm, the easier the transition into fat burning and autophagy becomes. And this is exactly why the time of day plays a decisive role. Now it becomes clear why not all fasting works the same way. Because the body at night is not a neutral space. It is in a completely different hormonal state than during the day. In the evening, melatonin rises. Body temperature drops. Metabolism switches from processing to repair. Those who eat during this phase force the body to run two opposing programs at the same time: digesting and repairing, storing and regenerating. This costs energy, and it blocks exactly the processes fasting is meant to trigger. If, on the other hand, the last meal is finished early in the evening, fasting begins in sync with the internal clock. Insulin can fall uninterrupted. Sleep becomes deeper, and while the body rests, cleanup and repair processes continue. This principle is called early time restricted feeding. Not fasting longer, but fasting earlier. A common mistake is to equate these two goals. Fat loss responds strongly to low insulin and stable sleep. Autophagy, on the other hand, responds to sustained cellular energy scarcity. This means, for weight loss, a well-timed fasting window of 14 to 16 hours is often sufficient, especially if it includes the night. For autophagy, longer periods of low energy availability are usually required. 16 to 24 hours, sometimes more. But this range is sensitive. Because beyond a certain point, fasting can shift from a repair stimulus to a stress stimulus. Fasting is not a competition, and more is not automatically better. Prolonged fasting combined with sleep deprivation, high stress, or insufficient electrolyte intake can raise cortisol levels. The body does not interpret this as healthy scarcity, but as a threat. The result: energy is conserved. Fat is held onto. The metabolism becomes defensive. Particular caution is advised for people with eating disorders, who are pregnant, who have chronic illnesses, or who take medications that affect blood sugar. Fasting is not a substitute for medical care. The body does not ask, "How long are you fasting?" It asks, "Does this fit my biological time?" The best time to fast is not extreme. It is coherent. Coherent with your sleep. Coherent with your daylight exposure. Coherent with your stress level. When you fast in harmony with your rhythm, the body begins to let go. Fat, old cellular components, unnecessary reserves. When you fast against it, Even the longest fast becomes a burden. What does your current fasting window look like? Do you eat late or do you stop early? Share your experience in the comments. And if you want to understand what is really happening inside your body, subscribe to the channel. Because health does not begin with rules. It begins with understanding. This video is intended for scientific education. It does not replace medical advice. Fasting affects each person differently. Age, sex, hormonal status, medications, sleep, and stress significantly alter the body's response. In particular, people with diabetes, eating disorders, chronic illnesses, and those who are pregnant or breastfeeding should not fast without medical supervision. The most important metric is not a protocol, but the signal of your own body. Fasting is not a trick, not a challenge, not a competition. It is a biological dialogue. And those who learn to abstain at the right time do not need to become extreme to see results. The body is not an enemy to be outsmarted. It is a system that wants to be understood. When you learn to work with its timing instead of against it, change begins almost on its own.